Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tabasamu Tena with Patricia. This is the place where we empower you with the real causes of behavior problems in people, and we also inspire you to take back your life and ultimately smile again. Today, our topic of discussion is a question, and I want to pose this question to you, our viewer. Should the atrocities our parents committed against us warrant for us to hate them? Should the atrocities or the bad things that our parents did to us, knowingly or unknowingly, should we hate them for that? And as usual, I want to begin the show by reading a quote that inspired me pertaining our topic of discussion. Heal before having children, so your children don't have to heal from having you as a parent. And I want to take that again. Heal before having children, so your children don't have to heal from having you as a parent. Joining me on set to discuss this topic today is the very Honorable Benjamin Zulu himself and our resident expert, Pastor Mweni Wambua. We missed you when you were away. Wow.
It's good to be back. Thank you.
One of our viewers reached out to me, and that viewer sent me a very emotional letter. In this letter, this viewer told me a bit of herself and a bit of what her mother in specific did to her. And what caught my attention is, I hate my mother. I cannot have anything to do with her, which got me thinking. We were offended, even all of us seated here. If we were to look for something that our parents did to us or against us, we would get something. But should that really warrant for us to hate them or to completely disconnect ourselves, given that they are our biological parents, father, mother? Should we hate them?
Be very careful when you talk about mothers as if they're the same. There's a group called narcissistic mothers.
Huh.
They are evil, petty, they have a very vindictive core, and they torment their daughters almost to death. They even attempt to kill them. From the time, narcissists can be in both genders, but when it is between a mother to daughter, it is especially damaging. Most likely that's the girl you are dealing with. And she usually torments the firstborn or the most shining girl, or the one who has an independent mind from the word go, who tries to challenge her. I've dealt with many of those cases, and I have a whole program for recovery from abuse by a narcissistic mother. So I want to start by differentiating that. Let's first of all agree that maybe if you were born by a narcissistic parent, it took you survival to be alive this far, even to be able to function socially. Mm-hmm. And many of them, that's why I said in another show that once you, and I like the quote you read, once you leave your home, before you start your own home, in between here, please adjust your defaults. If you grew up surviving, because when parents are very abusive, narcissists are those people who are very self-absorbed, they lack any kind of feeling. The narcissistic mother views the daughter as a competitor and also as an extension of her own self. She wants to control you totally, and she's also totally threatened of the fact that you shine. And they are petty, they're very childish. They can harass you over very small things. Those daughters are so isolated because society does not understand them. We say, your mother gave birth to you, she's supposed to respect them, it's you is wrong. So, and because politically those mothers are very, socially, they're very nice, so everybody thinks they're okay. So these girls usually suffer in silence. But in general, I need to say the following, that once you grow up, whether you are in a healthy or abusive parent, if you are under a healthy home, in between the time you leave your home and the time you start your own home, you need to adjust your defaults. And they told men not to marry a girl from their mother's home. There's something about that girl you don't know. Amezoea yogurt na remote control na kuletewa food na jailipa rent na jahara aja negotiate mwezi umesha na rent. Ile siku atano umetumia pesa yote kwa rent, anajam hujamletea pizza. Judadi alikuwa bado anamletea pizza. I'm not saying all children are spoiled, but it's important in between the time you start your own family and the time you leave your own, in between there is supposed to, and now come and say, who am I? In Hebrews 11:24, when Moses became of age, He made his own choices now, not to identify with the Egyptians, although they had grown him up. He was very thankful for the daughter of Pharaoh for giving him a princely treatment. But now a time had come to think about his calling more than his past. So in between the time you grow up and in between the time you become your own a family person, in between here, set your true north. And I told people not to date before you know your true north, because you'll be lying to the person. Me, I take you to be my, and you don't know who you are. You're supposed to know who you are calling me before you say I do. Who is that who is doing? Are you an advocate? Are you a preacher? Are you this? Maybe you'll end up becoming a theologian, and I want to open clubs. So I'm imagining having a series of clubs where guys can club and have rave the whole weekend. And you're imagining, hallelujah. But you don't know because you're 23 and I'm 24. We are just in love. I tell people not to marry too soon. Don't rush into it. So I think if you came from a parent and you're still angry with your parents, the one thing, be happy. I mean, not really happy, but just be grateful that you came through. And the reason God gives you tough battles is because He knows He has given you what it takes to survive them. What you need now is to reorganize and heal.
Oh. Wow. I like the way Benjamin speaks with so much passion.
Yeah.
And here is the thing, Patricia. Families are the basic element of society. So what happens is that it is in families that we begin to know how we are going to relate with the world. Therefore, that which is not taught to us in families, or that which is not defined in families, must be refined by life. And therefore, what happens is this. When a mother, who is supposed to be a source of nurturing, a source of affirmation, a source of approval, a source of security, and a source of compliment and pride, and indeed a primary identity marker, has a conflict with you, more than anything else, it makes the child to think that there's something wrong with me. Because a child at that point in time does not know that something could be wrong with the mother, does not have the capacity to know that it is the mother that may have issues, but they think, remember, the children are about cause and effect. So if this person who is supposed to love me does not love me, then I must be wrong. It's about cause and effect at that stage. So the child cannot be able to negotiate life because they do not even have the mental capacity and the emotional skills yet to do that. Now what happens is that child grows up with a fractured inner voice. And that fractured inner voice will ultimately continue to exist in a fractured personality and in a fractured person, as it were. Now that fractured person is going to go out into an already broken world. Now, what kind of situation would you expect someone who is already broken encountering a broken world? The broken world continues to speak into their broken spaces. Take the different child who grew up in a home that is healthy, a home that is nurturing, a home that strengthened their inner voice as a child. Even when they encounter a broken world, they find a strengthened inner voice. So that world does not define what is on the inside. The conditions of the child do not define the person of the child. Now, and when your viewer says, I hate my mother, I completely can hear where they're coming from, because they have grown up all along in this space knowing that they probably would find that before they hated their mother, they actually hated themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's what their mother told them, that you're not worthy of love. Mm-hmm. So there was a sense of rejection, and there was a sense of worthlessness. And their mother, who was supposed to help nurture their self-esteem, actually broke it. So by the time the child realizes that the problem was not me, but it was my mother, it was because they got out of that home and began to see how other healthy mother-daughter relationships look like. So what I would want to first say to that person is that their emotions are valid.
Yes.
Their pain is valid. Mm-hmm. And pain must be heard.
Yes.
Our pain needs a voice.
Yes.
And that means that our emotions are not self-creating.
Yes.
Therefore, our emotions cannot be self-dissolving. So this person needs help to equip them, deal with their pain of the past, because if they do not deal with their pain, they will tomorrow become a mother, and yes. Pain that is not transformed is going to be transferred. Yes. And therefore that mother who she hated is actually going to be the mother she'll become.
Yeah.
So she needs to deal with what she has what the emotions that she has around her mother and get healing from that.
No, I agree with everything you guys are saying. But now I'm thinking, aren't our parents also human beings who make mistakes, who have their own also unresolved issues? So probably this mother, yes, offended you. Whatever they did could be so bad, and I don't justify what they did. But now I'm thinking from a point of perspective that is, this mother, should she be hated? Should she be punished forever?
Differentiate between two kinds of negative influence by your parents. If your parent forced you to do a degree in the university that you did not want, so they throw you in the wrong direction deliberately. One guy was forced to do engineering, and he simply wanted to do a matatu driver. So he was forced to it, and when he finished it, he took it to his father. Ilikuwa yako, chukua. And then he went to be a driver in Embasava. You know, part of a person who forced their will on you, that is a deliberate offense. But it's another kind of offense. A person who hurt you because they themselves were unconsciously hurting. For example, I've dealt with daughters or sons who the mother is just paranoid. They've been so rejected in life, the mothers, the parents themselves, that they are afraid. They've been so betrayed that they're afraid for you. So what I help these people is to know, please see the experiences of your parents that brings them here. It's not coming from, these ones mean well. They're just hurting you unknowingly. That you need to differentiate these two things. There's a person who deliberately wants to force you. Our family, we only do law.
Not even that, medicine. Even rape. You know, a father who rapes a daughter, then that is very intentional.
But look at a person like Joyce Meyer, who says she was so abused sexually by the father, by the way. And she has reached a point. So where I want to say is, the moment you become a person of your own, now it's upon your responsibility to heal, to forgive. Because even if you hate, you're the one who is carrying the hatred. You're the one that is eating you. Even if you don't forgive, you're the one carrying the weight. You're the one being weighed down. And my philosophy has always been, our life is short. You don't have any one day to spend hating
somebody.
But again, we do not say that it's easy for you. We are saying undertake the journey. I don't like our lecturer prevented us from saying, it's not easy. It all depends. She saw that's intellectual, being intellectually lame. Can you take the responsibility? Don't just hide. It's not easy. So what? This is your life. Take the responsibility. So we're not saying simple, but you're saying it has to be done. Undertake to heal the wounds that you went through. There's an extent to which all of us will go through difficulties. Some from parents, others from another side of life. There's an extent to which we are not all exempt. In general, you can assume that everybody has gone through difficult stuff. But there's a place you reach in life where you, now, this is my baggage. This is my journey. These are my wounds. Now, where do I start? It's always best to say, it's so painful, but I have to do it now. You must not reach a point where you curse your parents.
Curse them, exactly.
But you don't have to be friends.
With your parents.
Actually, your relatives in general.
No, let's talk about parents. Relatives, it's okay, but how do you not relate with your parents?
No, you are going to honor them. The Bible says honor. Children obey, but when you grow up, you stop becoming a child, you honor. To honor is to acknowledge, to do your duty. My mother, I send her some members, I check on her when she's in hospital, take care. But I don't have to disclose my life to her. We don't have to be friends. We don't view life the same way. I still have scars she inflicted on me deliberately. But she brought me to the world. God used her as a vessel. I'm going to do my duty as a son, as a daughter to my parents. But I don't have to have them advise me, coach me, mentor me. Your mother doesn't have to be a mentor. Doesn't have to be your mentor. Friendship is earned. It's not given by titles. So just because they are your mother, put them how the relationship allows. Some parents are very controlling. And I said a very statement that seemed radical. I told people, you're going to remain poor if you continue consulting your parents who have never handled money, how to handle your money.
All right.
Honor them, but acknowledge their limitations. Because once you get salary, mami unaona nifanye nini? Tuchimbie choo, tuweke tank, sasa tujengea nyumba, peleka huyu pale, tupete Mombasa, nilipie chama, ninunulie kanyama. They will distribute your salary and you never progress. You have to make decisions yourself. I'm not saying you put them in a lower place. No, you just know that if you have gone to the university, you've gone ahead more than them, surely they can't guide you to a place they don't know. Acknowledge them and put where they belong. Sometimes you are lucky enough to have parents who are so exposed they can mentor you. You are lucky. Please appreciate the blessing. Okay. But if your parents can't mentor you, don't feel a duty to continue involving them in your life and they hold you down. I've had people who had a 3-year contract, well paying. But after the 3-year contract, because they continued, taking all the wisdom and decisions from home and they were direct to take all the money home, the contract ends and they go back to poverty.
Here is the thing, Patricia. Life is about circles. 3 circles I'd like to talk about. There's a circle of concern. My circle of concern includes, Aki, Nairobi has potholes, you know. It is something that concerns me, but it's something I can really not do much about.
Nothing about, yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. And let's just be blank about it. It doesn't even matter who I vote. Sometimes,
Yes, yeah.
and Nairobi will still have potholes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, or Aki, the weather in July is
bad,
so
it's
temperamental.
cold.
It's really a circle of concern, but I cannot do anything about it. That's a weather that the Almighty God has given us. So there is an area that we must see who sits in the area of who sits in the circle of concern. The second circle is a circle of influence, and it is a smaller circle than the one of concern. And it, again, even in the circle of influence, it is the people that I would like to call a support system. A support system is people that nurture you into the person that you need to grow into. They challenge you into the person that you need to grow into. And then the last circle is a circle that is your responsibility. My words, my behavior, my choice, my attitude, my responsibility. And the circle of responsibility, you have control over it. And the circle of influence, you have control over who is in it. The circle of concern is completely not your business. The circle of concern is what is going on in the US today. You know, it is out there, it is affecting you, but how does that affect the price of cocoa in Ghana? You know, here is the thing. You must decide who sits in what circle. And if your parents wronged you, sad as it may be, you will need to close yourself in a room. You know, call yourself for a meeting.
Small meeting.
Call yourself for a meeting and sit down and have a constructive conversation about the pain that your parents caused you. But here is the thing that I will also say, both as a daughter and as a mother today. Here is, you know, it's very interesting that sometimes we think our parents are all knowing, all present. You know, my children at the age, they know mommy has a third eye. She's going to come home in the evening and she'll know everything they've done during the day. Because I think I'm omnipresent. You know, they think I'm all knowing. They think I'm all that. And then, but as they grow older, they begin to realize, kumbe mommy is human. Kumbe mommy has mistakes.
Yes.
Kumbe mommy has weaknesses.
True.
Now, how I deal with my weaknesses, how I deal with my strengths will teach my children how to deal with their own weaknesses and their own strengths. If I acknowledge my weaknesses, and my children see that mommy is a work in progress, and mommy is very aware of her own frailties, and she's dealing with them on a daily basis and healing them, we begin to also get to a place of realizing that as we are growing up, so are our parents. None of us has been this way before, because life is a journey. So like what Benjamin said, there are those wounds that our parents will cause us that were unintentional.
Yeah, true.
And then there are those other wounds that will come because of the course of life. And there are those other wounds that your parents will knowingly, consciously, and intentionally inflict on you. Those are the wounds that we must call ourselves into a meeting about and weigh them. Remember that our parents also may have pain from their own childhood.
True.
May have carried pains from their own childhood. Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, one of the common things we see mothers doing in weddings is mothers love to cry at weddings. And sometimes I find it such an interesting perspective that mothers love to cry at weddings. And I always think, do they cry at weddings because daughters usually marry men who are like their fathers? And therefore mothers are wondering, Aki, now this one is going to go through what I've gone through. Or is she crying because there's so much that a woman goes through in a marriage that when you're walking down the aisle with your eyes of love and oh, love will carry us through this, you are so unaware of and you're so blind to. Could that be what your mother is crying about? Or she could, I mean, and you know, mothers' tears are balls of wool that have different emotions rolling down. You know, she could simply be crying because finally my girl is getting married. For whatever reason your mother cries, sometimes your mother cries because she's aware of the wounds she caused you.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is an age where a daughter and mother become both women.
Yes.
And you must sit down and have a conversation
As women.
as two women. There is not something in my life changed, Patricia, the day I went into the delivery room. I got reintroduced to my mother.
Exactly. Me too.
You see, and so that woman that was reintroduced to my mother, I began to see my mother from a new perspective. And here's the other thing that also happened to me. There are things that I held against my mother that I began to realize where she was coming from.
Exactly.
And so at the point and in which I realized, you know what? Like the book of Corinthians says, I left my childhood ways behind me,
yeah.
and now I evolved into the woman that I am. I must allow myself, and it is important for me to go back and have that conversation with my mother as a woman. Now, it is one thing for me to leave my house and go to have my conversation with my mother, and my mother not to want to have that conversation. I can go and I can try to have that conversation, and she's not welcoming to have that conversation. However, I can still speak my part. You know, like our Nigerians say, I've done my part. Oh,
I've done my part.
I've done my part. And what would my part include? My part includes being heard. Now, she may not want to sit down and we have the conversation because she may feel like, first of all, for me to have this conversation with her is disrespectful.
Yes.
Well and good. I can go back home and I can write her a letter and give it to her and let her deal with it. But here's the other thing. Sometimes we can even be able to effectively assess our mothers and realize this one is not ready to hear. This one does not, there's a difference between having capacity and having ability. And so I can decide this one, it doesn't matter what I will say. So I can, because healing is for me. It is for myself, it's not for her. While she's a participant in this, I'm still taking responsibility for myself, not for her. So I can sit down, still go back and write that letter and get the emotions for me done and heal myself and have the conversation with myself and then keep that letter aside and begin my recovery journey. Because as I write, there's a coordination that happens between the heart, the head, and the hand that removes the filters.
All right. Now, we've really discussed about, mother, daughter, but, we are leaving out the son and the father.
I've never been a son
or
and I've
even
never been a father.
A father and a daughter. And let me tell you something, and I speak from a very biased point because I am a parent. And I know at times we do some goofy things. I know it is wrong. But at times when, for instance, when your father wants you to get married to a specific man, or wants you to marry a specific person, or even forced you to go to school to study something that you did not want. Some of these things, well, yes, we may think they're very intentional, but I'm looking at it like this. Well, it is an offense because you're not supposed to be forced, and you have your rights and you have your likes, and they should be respected. But do you really think that your father or your mother's intention is really bad? Are they doing this because they wish you bad? They are hurting you, and I agree, especially when it comes to a spouse or even a career. Do we really think that our parents are doing this with a bad intention?
Look at your father telling you, I cannot take that tribe as my in-laws. You brought a daughter?
Is it because they have bad intentions?
No, I don't want to know why, but he's affecting my life.
True.
He's being dictator, mkoloni, over my life. I did not dictate who he married. He wants to dictate who I married.
But you see, that's
even if it's being done by a daddy, surely that's unfair.
Probably he grew up in a dictatorship and he was brought up in dictatorship, and the only way of life that he knows is dictatorship.
Good. So I want to tell you about father wounds. Study the story of Moses. The father of Moses was deadbeat. From the time the baby is born, it's women handling the boy.
Correct.
It's one woman floating, another girl
hiding.
And even at the Pharaoh's house, is the daughter handling
of the Pharaoh.
So this ended up a temper problem throughout. So one symptom of a father wound is temper, bad temper. And you see many men, they don't realize that temper is a liability. They even use it as part of their identity. Nakwanga na bad temper usinipite hapa, uliza watu wakuambie. He's using it as his identity. You're supposed to heal, brother. That anger caused Moses not to reach the land of promise. I want to announce to men who listen to me. If you suspect that you have a bad temper, or you're just a bitter, or you just confused identity, some men hurt you by being absent. They did not show up and dictate you. They just abandoned you. And because you watched them walk out, or that absence, the void they left, made you so angry and non-believing life, next time you're going to talk about these homosexuality things, but I tell you, all the guys who I meet who are hating being men has something with the man in their life. Who hate being man, they want to be trans. Or many of them they want women. Men, many gender identity has so much to do with the father effect. So I want to announce women, if you think your father hurt you, you are angry with him. And many men you see today rebelling against teachers. And a big reason men don't show up in church is because the pastor reminds me of who?
My father.
And so they hate any authority that is male. It reminds them. They also don't convert because the Heavenly Father sounds like the earthly father. The Heavenly Father was a monster. How more the
Heavenly.
So sometimes it goes, and don't think this started now. In the first family, 2 men, one killed the other. So the mother lost 2 sons. One was murdered, the other one became a murderer. First family. And the man was also absent. He was taught to teach his wife how to worship God. And then he was absent. And the snake came and started preaching a sermon. And he was, until the sermon had conclusion, until she was convinced to eat the fruit, and then talked to him and he ate. In the first, we have 3 men failing.
So now,
the solution.
not the solution per se, but in 30 seconds, should we hate our parents?
Here is the thing,
Should we hate them?
and I believe that as long as we are alive, there is always redemption. And while we are able to draw examples from the Bible, in the same Bible we read the story of Joseph. Joseph was from a typically dysfunctional family.
Kabisa,
Father
completely.
slept with first wife.
Yes.
Father slept with second wife. Father slept with maid of first wife. Fathers, completely dysfunctional. In fact, if you had a family like that in your neighborhood, you'd probably not allow your children to play with children from that home. However, God, the Heavenly Father, was still able to raise Joseph to fulfill his purposes regardless of the conditions that he grew up in. His conditions did not determine his position. And we must always know that whereas our earthly father may fail us, there is always redemption because we have a heavenly Father who stands in the place of canceling the things that our earthly fathers did wrong, but also pouring into us the things that our earthly fathers left a deficit. Bottom line is that recovery is your responsibility. You may not be responsible about what happened to you, but recovery is your responsibility. But also recovery is not a function of time. Time does not heal wounds. It is what we do during that time that brings about healing.
Should we hate our parents?
No, we shouldn't. You should not convert your life to a revenge mission.
All right.
Take it upon yourself to heal.
Hey, come on, guys. We cannot end this any better. Do not convert your life to a revenge mission. Come on, guys. It's been real. We have to end because time is not on our side. But now, if your parents hurt you and you hate them, how do you redeem yourself? What's the best way forward? How do you even forgive? Or if you are a sidelined parent, if you are that parent who is hated, you did wrong and your children want nothing to do with you, what should you do? Watch out for our next episode. It's been real. You can follow Benjamin on all the social media platforms. Mweni, reach out to us, guys. Write to us. We want to hear what you have to say. Ask us all the questions. Send us your comments. Send us your suggestions, and we will be sure to respond. Our Instagram page is Tabasamu Tena, Facebook, YouTube, and please, please, please subscribe so that you are able to be notified when we upload a new video. Till next time, God bless.